Welcome to a new video. Unfortunately, I don't make a ton of these anymore due to time constraints because I have a son and that takes away a lot of my free time. So I did want to make one for what I'm about to do today. And what I'm about to do is install the new Garmin Zumo XT onto my bike. Now, this video will have different purposes. It can show you how to run a wire through your bike safely. It can show you how to install any GPS to your bike, or I can show you how to install specifically the Garmin XT unit that I have right here. In the past, GPS units have been these big, blocky, Soviet-like looking devices that really looked pretty bad, and they didn't work really well either. Sure, they did perform the function that they were designed to do, but they were laggy and you know, was clunky to get around. And I feel like a lot of that has changed with the new Zumo. In this video, you're going to hear me a lot kind of talking to myself, my thought process, how I'm doing things and all that. So it's very long. It actually shows you how I do literally everything from start to finish. And you do hear me talking to myself like I'm a crazy person, but hopefully that will help you understand where my mind is at when I'm looking to thread a wire through the bike. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so one of the first things you want to do is kind of get the lay of the land of how you're going to do this. Now, obviously, I'm going to want my GPS to go somewhere along that bar. So I'm going to have to move my phone holder right there. And that's going to either go to the left or to the right. But I know I want the GPS in this bar, and I want it centered with the cluster. So that much I know. Now, to do that, I know that I have to run a wire to power it, right? Which is the main purpose of what I'm going to do today. I know that under the passenger seat, I have a power distribution block, which you can see right here. That means I'm going to have to run a wire from here all the way to the front of the bike. Now, I've already done this exercise already. As you can see, I have a USB cable here. There's actually a USB port in there that I installed. There's actually, I drilled through here. Let me see if I can show it to you guys. It's probably too dark. But I've already done it, so I know kind of how this is going to work. And to do that, I'm going to go around the bike and kind of remind myself of how I did this. So you can see I use these plastic tubes, and they run all through this, and they go under the tank. So it is very likely that I'm going to have to remove the tank again to do this work. Now, you can see I have these SAE plugs. These come from the power distribution block, and they exit right here. They're great for like charging your bike when you're not using it, or if you want to do a heated gear, like heated jackets or pants. But I do know that I'm going to have to run along this bike, all along through here, and you can barely see it. Let me see if I can get it. Yeah, it's not gonna, it's too dark. But the cable that runs to the USB port actually comes out through there, and it kind of routes in here. You can't even see it. It's pretty proud of that job because it's pretty much invisible. Even the port is invisible. You can't really get to it. Like, I can't even show it to you without it appearing. But anyway, I know that I'm going to have to run this wire through this whole bike. In order to do this, I'm going to have to remove, let me see if I can get this. I'm going to have to remove those plastic fairings. I'm going to have to remove all of this here. I'm going to have to remove this here. All this stuff here. Remove all that. And that will allow me enough space to work to run this cable however I want it so that it's invisible and it's permanent. So let me show you what is step 2. Okay, so step 2 is actually laying down the harness that came with the Garmin unit, and you can see it running all along. So the length seems to be okay. I think we'll be fine without having to add any more wire to the back. One thing I did want to note is this little box. Obviously, this comes with a harness, and threading this through the bike is going to be difficult. So ideally, I want to keep this box somewhere in this area where I can secure it and tuck it or whatever. I do not want to have to run this under the tank because I'm not going to be able to. Obviously, you can see that threading this connector, which is the actual GPS connector, is a much easier task than to, you know, run this huge box all over the bike. So that box, my planning In my planning, I want that box to stay here, somewhere in here, and hopefully just have to run this little cable all the way to the front. So now that I more or less know what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk a little bit about my power block here. So this is a fuse block, and it's basically used to connect, I use it to connect low and medium power devices. There's six, I believe, yeah, there's 6 ports that I can use to connect different things. And you see I'm already using 3 of them. You might be asking yourself, why do you use this and not just hook it up straight to the battery post? That's a very valid question. One of the reasons I do it is because I don't want my battery post to be 1 inch high with a bunch of stuff connected to it. Once you start adding the actual, connection of the motorcycle to the bunch of stuff that you have, this post will start growing and growing, and by the time you're done, you have a bunch of wires coming out of your battery. I don't want that. Right now I only have 2 wires, and that's all I need, because most of the stuff that I use on the bike is very low powered and can be perfectly powered by the fuse block anyway. This is a 1.5 amp? Yeah, 1.5 amp. So, this thing takes up to 30, if I'm not mistaken. Either 20 or 30, but either way, I'm way below the maximum. And this keeps everything organized and neat in the block, so you don't have a bunch of like wires coming out of your battery. Also makes to replace your battery, it's a lot easier to do that if you only have 2 cables coming out of it than if you have 5 or 6. So the other thing is, this thing has a possibility of using switched power. I don't use switch powered on this because I want everything on this always hot. The reason for that is I use this port to charge the battery on the wall, and you can actually set each circuit up so that it's either switched or hot. I didn't want to splice into a wire like the tail light, like over here you can see this is a tail light cables running through here. I didn't want to cut into that, and I'm very disciplined when it comes to stuff like not leaving stuff on the bike. I've actually never had a battery die on me because I left something on. So I prefer to leave it hot always. I also want my GPS to work with the bike off. I don't want it to turn off. So anyway, it looks like I've already gone through what I'm going to have to do. Remove all of these plastics, most likely remove the tank, and that will give me access to everything. So anyway, this is how I'm thinking about it. Let's see if it does work out, if it works out how I thought about it. I'm waiting on a part, by the way. It's coming later today. It's going to be the Touratech locking mechanism for this, which I'll show you when it comes here. So I'm going to leave that for last. I can still run the wire. The wire always has to run anyway, regardless of whatever equipment I use. I'm also going to have to remove my windscreen. You can see I don't have space to work here in the back. I want to be able to work here. So this is coming off as well. And we're basically stripping her down to a point where we can actually work very comfortably and do everything that we have to do. Okay, so one of the first things we want to do is get one of these plates, because you're going to be pulling a lot of bolts from here. So I use these from Harbor Freight. They're very cheap, and since I have a metallic tank, it'll stick right to it. I like to put it there so it's less of an angle. And I do know that I'm going to have to remove all this. So to start doing this, I have to start with this part over here. And for that, I need an Allen wrench. I think it's a 6, maybe it's a 5. It's a 5. Well, we're in luck because I have a 5 right here. So let's start by undoing these 2 bolts right here. Okay, so now this is loose and it comes off relatively easy. It's just like that. There's a cable attached to it. Just make sure that you're careful when you're pulling it. You need to pull it out of the. You need to disconnect it. There you go. It just pulls off. There's no tab or anything. You just pull it off, and now this part is off. Now I like to put things around the bike as I'm taking it off. So for example, the right side of my bike, all the parts that I'm going to take off from the right side are all going to come to the, from the left side of the bike. They're all going to come to the left side of the garage, and the right side of the bike to the right side of the garage. That keeps everything kind of organized for me. Okay, so let's take a look here. This is done. Okay, so I'm going to start now by removing the emblems. So I'm going to head and do that. I think it might be a 30, maybe. No, it's smaller, right? Yeah, it's smaller. So the bolts go with a T25 Torx wrench. I'm going to remove that. We got it. Now what I do here is put these bolts in the emblem and put the emblem aside. Now I'm going to go back to the 5, I think it is. Yeah, it's a 5. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. You know what? I'm going to start with this thing down here. So I'm going to start with these bolts. So for my motorcycle, I actually have to remove all of these plastics. Your bike might be different, and you're the only one that can kind of figure out if you're going to need to remove stuff or not. In my case, yes, I have to remove it. I have to make sure that I have room to work with. Every bike is different. Some have fairings, some don't. Some are more naked or whatever. You're going to have to figure out what you need to remove to make this work for you. There's no harm in doing that. Okay, I think now, oh, there's one more bolt over here on this side. But let me see what happens. Oh, okay, so you can see pulling this off is relatively simple. And you can pull it off all together like this, like it is. I'm just gonna go hunting for that single bolt that came down. And again, I'm gonna put this on the left side of the bike. Here's a bolt came off. I do not know. It's not a bolt, it's a sleeve. I'm gonna put it here for now, and we'll figure it out later. Okay, now this piece is relatively simple. You have to remove this bolt here. I don't know if this is probably a 6. Oh no, it's a 5. Okay. So I'm gonna remove this bolt right here. Okay. Same size, right? Yeah, same size. So if it's the same size, there's no harm in just leaving it together. And this slides back. Look at how you see how I slid that back, and this goes in here. So I'm going to set this like this on the left side of the bike. Okay, now I've exposed. You know what? I might not even have to remove the tank. This actually might be a lot quicker than I thought, because I think I have room to maneuver. I think I might have room to maneuver here. This is looking promising. Okay. So, and this is the reason why I wanted to remove this side of the bike first, because I wanted to see how this was. I think I can make it. Actually, let's try to thread the wire. Let's see how that goes. Okay, since I've gotten to this stage, and I think I might be able to thread this without removing the tank, I'm going to give it a shot. And to do that, I buy these things at Harbor Freight. They're very cheap. They're about $3 to $4 each. And you can see I use them extensively all over the bike, and they just work great. They're fantastic. So I'm going to cover this wire and this. This actually, this is a much less slippier thing than this is, even though this is corrugated. I feel like this travels easier. So I'm going to open it up and see. So you can see it's very long. It's a great length, and I actually really like this corrugated thing. I'm going to protect the terminal that comes here. I'm going to go ahead and protect that. I don't know if this makes it too thick to kind of run under there, but we'll find out. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start covering this. I'm going to go ahead and start covering this with this plastic sleeve. When you do this, the cable is obviously, the end result is a lot thicker than it was initially. but that's okay. We want to try to protect this as much as we can. So we're going to snip the cable. We're going to snip it. See, maybe here. Just make sure you don't cut the harness. But you can see here, this is pretty good. This looks good. Okay, so now I have this. I'm going to move this out of the way. But now I have this very solid thing. So let me figure out. Okay. This is not being zip tied to anything. It looks like I just ran it through there. So let's see if this works. If we can get this through. Yeah. I want it under the two. I think those are going to help it a little bit there. Oh my god, I might not even have to remove the tank. This is great. This is fantastic news. So, I'm going to move these out of the way. Hold them there. And now we're going to keep threading, hoping to follow this existing line that I have here.
So as I was doing this part of the video, I was really trying to thread the wire however I wanted it to go. There was one portion where it was getting stuck, and I was refusing to kind of just route it in a different direction. I really wanted to route it the way I initially planned it. And I realized that I was going to have to remove the gas tank in order to do that. So I actually took a break after this and kind of gave it some thought and decided that it might be best to just route it in a different direction, which would not require me to remove the gas tank. It wasn't ideal, at least according to me, but it would work, and it would work just fine, and it will have the same result, and there will be no downside to it.
Okay, so while I was making preparations to remove the fuel tank, you see I've brought a few rags to catch some fuel that would come out if I remove the tank. I actually started thinking about this and started wondering what would the problem be if I just threaded this through the space. I mentioned earlier in my video that it's something that I didn't want to do, but then I actually started thinking about, do I not want to do this instead of removing the fuel tank? And this actually looks quite good. So it's not in the way of anything. So you can see if I turn the handlebars won't rub against it. Obviously I'm going to zip tie this down here, so I'm going to zip tie this to this so that it's nice and snug against this wall. So instead of coming inside of the wall, it'll come to the outside, zip tied really close to here, and then the handlebars won't even rub it. And so I was thinking, you know, is that so wrong to do? Because look, I'm pretty much done. You know, I'm done. I'm literally done here if I just do that instead of removing the tank and trying to mimic what I did before when I had the tank off. So, you know, for the sake of ease and getting this going, I think I'm going to leave it like that, zip tie it, and that'll be that. I need to make sure that the length is correct and that I can get this like way out of the way, so that the bars, you see, if I leave it like it is, the bars are going to be constantly rubbing it. I don't want that. I want that to be kind of held against this wall right here. And after that, whoa, my garage door is closing. Hold it open. So after that, I should be good. Look, I have a little rock there. But after that, I should be good to, it's going to go down through there, probably up, keep it nice and threaded, but I think this will work. I mean, you know what? I can actually thread it through here already. Let's try that. Probably not going to see anything because I have to use both hands for this, but I'll show you the end result. Let me put this cap back on. I had to take it off so that it could pass through the hole. But now it did. Let's protect it again. And let's see if I'm able to make it come through here. I think it might. There's plenty of room here apparently. I can see it through here. There we go. There we go. Now I just need to be able to push it. I want it to come up here. That's where I want it to go. And once I'm able to do that, there, oh, progress. Okay. Now I want it up here, right where the GPS is going to be. Look at that. And now it's already up tucked against the wall. It's perfect. This is perfect. Yeah, I'm going to do this. I just hope that the length is good enough. I don't need any more to get higher than this. I doubt it. But now it's time to read instructions on Touratech and how to mount this baby here. So this is Touratech's locking GPS thing. So I think it goes like that, and then press this button or move it. There, yeah. I move it, and if I lock it, the GPS does not release. So this is obviously for, you know, short stops. And okay, this is gonna go somewhere here. This is obviously for short stops. It doesn't, it's obviously if somebody wants to get to your GPS, they'll get to it. But if you stop at a gas station, run in to take a leak, this should be keep your GPS safe. Yeah, this looks good right here. So this will probably keep your GPS safe when you're doing that. So let's pull up the instructions to install this. Okay, so it seems, okay, so I'm gonna need the actual thing. All right. Okay, so the Garmin GPS comes with some pieces that I can use for that. It comes with this. This is the actual thing that goes there. I'll show you how everything ties in a bit. Just gonna dump these pieces here. I'm gonna need one of those. I'm gonna need that screwdriver, and I do not need these. So these terminals that I have right here are, if you want to connect them to the battery posts, you put them in the wires, connect them to the posts. I don't do that. So I'm gonna leave exactly what I need and kind of put the rest away. So, okay, I need one of these screws. Way to go. This is why I have a lot of stuff trying to do everything at once. So I need one of these screws. There it is. Put the other one away. These screws are so tiny that if they get lost, good luck finding them. So I'm going to put that away. And now I'm going to need all of these pieces. So I'm going to put them in here. Okay. Put that back in the bag. So this is what goes here. So if I understand this correctly, this will go like, I need to twist this cable. There. So this is going to go like this. So I'm going to try to fit it through here. There. Okay. And now this will go like that, and it's going to go flat right here. Push that in, and boom, we got that going. So now that little tiny screw that we saw before is going to go in this hole right here. Now if I drop this screw in this garage, I'm never going to find it. So I'm going to take my time here and do this really carefully. God, this is a recipe for disaster. Okay, so the Touratech instructions, oh my god. How am I going to do this with two hands? Holy moly. So it looks like this goes like that. Let me just make sure. Oh, okay, this locks the release of the... Wait, well, this is way off the holes. Oh, okay, here, that's how it goes. Okay. Got it. All right, this is gonna take a second. And there's a really good reason for that.
And that reason is the instructions from Touratech aren't exactly the best. You can see me here, going back and forth and trying to figure this out. I'm getting the parts from Touratech. It turns out the screws that were required weren't the ones from Garmin. They're the ones that Touratech supplied. That's fairly easy to understand and fairly obvious. That's well labeled in the manual. But the problem is the order in which you have to do things is not correct. Okay, and I feel like we have to take a pause here to really go through these instructions, because kind of like the whole point of this video is to show you how to mount this thing. And since I had to have my wife come in, there was 4 hands working on this. I turned off the camera and didn't grab that footage. This is the instruction manual that comes with the locking unit, with the Touratech locking unit for the GPS. And one of the first things you see is the order of assembly steps must be followed. Now, I'm assuming that the first step is the next page where the instructions actually start, and it calls to install the power block that comes with the GPS into the locking unit first. Now, that won't work, and it's physically impossible to do that, and I'll show you why. In the next page, you have different ways of mounting this to the GPS bar. This is actually step 1, because and let's go with bracket 1, which is what I use. So all this stuff comes with the locking unit. You can see this little piece right here is where the GPS bar goes under it. So once you put that in, the unit is on the bar. But the problem stems from these 2 bolts right here. You cannot put these 2 bolts through these 2 holes when you have the power block on. You see, this is the hole where that bolt goes through, and the power block doesn't have it. So it's physically impossible to do step 2 after you've done step 1. So the way I did it, and just so you know, is I put these spacers in, these 4 spacers in that are not even in this graph. I put them in before I put on the back plate. Then I put on the back plate. Then I put the unit on the bar using these this little thing here, the washers, the nuts, and these 2 bolts. And that required 4 hands because it gets really complex really fast, particularly because these bolts down here go through this hole, and there's a lot of distance between this hole and the back. So it requires you can't just wing it with 2 hands. You need like somebody holding everything together while you're tightening down bolts and whatnot. So once the unit is locked on the bar, and by locked I mean just placed loosely on the bar, then you can move on to what is step 1 in this thing and attach the power block to the unit. I didn't find another way of doing this. I tried to follow this, and I spent some time following the instructions as they were, but I came to the conclusion that they're not correct. And I ended up just kind of winging it and doing it myself here. So this is what you need to do to install the bracket, the security, whatever you want to call it, the security holder, the GPS holder onto the bar. First, you do step 1, and then first you do step 2, and then you do step 1.
Okay, so now that we got these in, we have to take a moment to see how this fits with the GPS. Because that's still... Okay, so obviously GPS goes in here, right? There we go. This kind of holds it there. Okay, so now I have to figure out where I want this. I feel like somewhere there is going to be good enough for me.
Okay, so once you've positioned this, the rest is fairly simple. You just kind of tighten the screws and tighten the bolts. You can see me here, kind of locking everything down how I want it. It's just one size bolt, so it's great and it's easy to do. You want to snug it first and kind of leave it snugged so that you can then move it around. You can see I'm testing it while I'm sitting down in the seat, just to make sure I have the angle correct. Once I have the angle correct, it's just a matter of just finishing, tighten it down. And you can see me going back and forth, testing multiple times. Okay, where do I want it? Where do I want it? I want it here, there. Just want to make sure that as you tighten, the bracket doesn't move and doesn't shift. And then you'll get to a point where you know it won't move anymore and you'll be happy with it and just completely tighten everything down and just lock it down.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the fuse block, the power block. So this power block is great. You can see I have it Velcroed down over here, and there's a little Velcro strip in the back. That's how I keep it in place. I removed it because it's easier to wire things through. Now this is actually live. It's connected to the battery, so it does have power. Now the cool thing about this is you'll see there's 6 circuits basically, and the negatives go on this side, or the ground goes on this side, 12 volt goes on this side. And they don't have power until you fuse it. So you can see I have fuses on 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm probably going to go with 3 for this one. And until it's fused, there's no power going through it. So it's relatively safe unless you touch one of the wires that are fused or whatever. The other thing is, for this, I'm going to put a fuse, maybe like a 2, 2.5, 3, or whatever I can find, something low, because this uses very, very little power. So I'm going to go with something like that, something really low, and have to see if I can find it. So I have my screwdriver. This is actually what I use on my computer to fix it and whatnot. And I think this is probably good enough to get to these wires. So I'm going to go on number 3 here. Just make enough room for these wires to go through. So I'm going to go ahead and connect the ground first. I'm going to do ground first, and then I'm going to do the positive.
Now, you might be wondering a couple of things. The first one is, what is that red umbrella doing down there? That was from a visit from my kid. The second one is, why am I connecting ground first? You typically connect, positive first, the 12 volt line, the hot line first. The reason for that is there is no power to where I am running these cables. Sure, good discipline would, say just put the red one first and stop screwing around. But the truth is there is no power. I'm connecting them to circuits that have no power because they're not fused. So it doesn't matter what order I'm connecting them in. There's no power until I actually fuse that circuit. And I'm going to show that later on in this video.
So this is relatively simple. You simply grab the wire and you put it in, and that's it. That's all there is to it. There's not much else that you need to do. And this wire, fortunately, was already prepared. So now I'm going to screw it in so that it clamps down, and boom. Now that is done. I'm just going to check the other ones, make sure they're still snug. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to do the positive. There is no fuse again, so the risk is really minimal unless you touch something that is fused, that is live. So for this, I'm going to go under here, and I'm going to go into this one over here, number 3. So let's keep this wire there. Oh, came out. Let's keep this wire there. Perfect. And let's screw it in. Okay, and we're done. So this is one of the advantages of having a fuse block. It's just fantastic to work with. Things get really easy especially when you have a myriad of wires and cables and all that stuff. It gets really simple to work with. So now, oh, I bent this, sorry, there. These 2 are spares. So if you're on the road and you blow one of these, you get 2 chances to fix them. which is a great idea to have. So it's good that they include these spares in here. Okay, so the next step is actually fusing that to see if we can get power up there. So to do that, I'm going to go, I wonder where I have all my electrical stuff. I mean, it should be in one of these boxes. Nope, nope, nope. Nope, nope. Oh, down here. This is where it should be. So we're gonna hunt down a fuse, and then we'll worry about making that all tidy. So let's look for a fuse here, and look at that. I have all my fuses in here. So I am going to look for something really low, like 2 Fuzeblocks saved a day. So apparently I had stored some 3-amp fuses for this. This one's 2. This one's perfect. Let's try 2 first, because I believe, so by reading this label, the draw is 1.5. So I'm going to put 2. I think that's all I should need. Let's put this away before we lose it. Obviously, if you don't use these boxes to like group stuff together, you probably should start, because they're great. Okay, so I'm gonna put in a 2 fuse in here, which will now make the system, the power, it will now power the whole thing, will make it go live. Why isn't it going in? Come on, buddy. Here we go. Okay, so that's in. I have 2, 10, 10, 2, 5. Now that should now have power, and we're gonna do the trial of fire here and test it out. So let's see how this goes. Okay, here we go. Okay, so that should have power, and as you can see, it turned on, and it's charging. Mission accomplished. So that has power. I put the lowest fuse I could find on. 2 is great. If there's any serious issues, this will tell us. So now, time to put it in. We have to remember, this thing is constantly powered. So I need to remember to remove it from the bike so that it doesn't drain my battery. Now, like I said before, I'm pretty well disciplined with that, but it's something to keep in mind. If you're one of these people that forget stuff all the time, don't do this. Go to switched and figure out how to do this switched. Because otherwise you're gonna find yourself stranded at probably the worst possible time in the middle of a road. So I'm gonna turn that off so it doesn't eat too much battery. And now I'm gonna cover this back. Let's cover the fuse block. We're gonna write down GPS. We need to find a Sharpie. I usually keep one here. Okay. So GPS. Perfect. Done. Okay. Now we can put the cover back on. And that would be that, my friends. Now it's only a matter of, you know, putting the plastics back on the bike. And making this cable nice and tidy as well. That was not metal for some reason. I thought it was. This is a magnetic screwdriver, so I thought the magnetic screwdriver would hold it, but apparently it wasn't metal. My fingers are too big, so we're gonna need the needle pliers again. Let's get the needle pliers, just fish it out. Here we go. There, done, boom. All right. So right now, even though my GPS is off, it's still eating away battery, just so you know, because it's charging the internal battery. And once that's charged, it has a parasitic, you know, effect where it's always chewing away your battery. Very little, but if you leave your bike like this for, I don't know, 4 weeks, you might end up with a dead battery. I don't know. Either way, I don't plan to find out. Okay. Let's come back with a good friend over here and do this cable here. Perfect, yeah. So let's cut it here. Okay, now we have a more manageable piece that we can use. And we're gonna start threading it. Let me get my seat. Where's my seat? There we go. It's full of stuff, but we'll move all this down here. All right. Get a little bench and work a little bit more comfortably on this. Okay. So let's start to thread this through. This is it. This was the install. We're done. Everything's complete. Everything's working. We just have to start putting the bike back together, which obviously I'm not going to do. I've already shown how to take it apart. So now all I have to do is put back the windshield, put back the fairings, and that's it. And this is how you install a GPS connector. I'm going to talk a little bit about this Touratech piece right here and the GPS itself in another video if I have time. So great. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this makes your life easy. I thought I was going to be able to or have to remove the tank. I'm very happy that I did not have to do that. Although it would have been nice to record a video on how to remove the tank on these bikes. But I'll leave it for a separate occasion. Thank you for joining. And that's it. See you another time. Before I go, I want to make one last note regarding this install. The last step you should do is put everything on the bike as it's going to be and check whether there's any interference with the bar movement. So you can see here, I go with the bars lock to lock, and they're completely free and clear. You want to do that, and you can see there's a very tiny space left there. It doesn't quite touch it, but the bar is locked and it never does touch it. So I ended up putting the phone on the left, as you can see. I think this setup will work for me. And because the charging port for the phone is on the left, and I don't have a cable that is long enough to put it on the right. Either way, it's going to work. There's clearance here with the windshield. Even if the windshield flaps in the wind, it doesn't touch the phone. The GPS looks great. It's nice and centered. It allows me to have everything I need here. So again, before you take off, just make sure you are testing the lock to lock, and make sure you have everything exactly as it's going to be. You can see my phone is even connected here. So make sure that you have everything exactly as it's going to be, and test the lock to lock. You don't want anything to be touching with your bars. The same thing with the wire I ran down there. You might be able to see it. It does not touch the bars at all at any point. You can see it's zip tied neatly in there. And yeah, that's that.